Hello YouTube Vintage Stereo Collectors. We've got a Kenwood KR-33 here, and these were built, depending on what source you look at, 67 to 70, 69 to 70, and I know some date codes on the inside, but I would place this one as 1969. They're kind of a neat series, early Kenwood solid state. It has steel cover with a rolled simulated wood grain. I actually prefer it to a wooden sleeve. I like the metal ones, but I don't know why. Maybe it's shielding, maybe they stood up better. It's got this little insert here, and this is a hefty receiver. The sheet metal on the cover, on the chassis, are a little more rigid than what came along later in the mid to late 70s, and definitely what came along in the 80s. It's a very sturdy unit. When you have the cover off and on the bench and you're lifting it up and down and twisting it over to solder stuff, there's no flex in this unit. I'm just going to turn it on so you can see how nice the dial is. And it has that characteristic early solid state small bit of thump because it's a capacitor coupled output stage quasi-complementary. And this one here, I actually put in LED fuse lamps. I've been doing that in most of them now. They're easier to get than the originals. But this is a number 47 bayonet bulb here. This one here, kind of neat. It was from an estate. Bought it online. The thing, cosmetically, I would say is 9.5 out of 10. Hardly a mark on it, hardly a scratch, no dents, no bends, no smudges, no tobacco staining, nothing like that. Very, very clean unit. And what happened is it failed early in its life and was shelved. And this is what killed it. I couldn't figure out why the main fuse is blown, and it kept blowing. You know, you try it out. I don't use a Variac or anything like that. I've been doing this 40 years. You don't need a Variac. You plug it in, either it works or it doesn't. Then you go from there. What was happening is the fuse lamp on this side, the bulb for some reason wasn't quite seated down in the holder. It was touching the back aluminum faceplate, so it was shorting out every time you turned it on. So really all that ended up putting this on the shelf was the fact that it would have kept blowing its fuses and you couldn't use it, but it was really a simple fix, new bulb, new fuse. But time also has a factor in this. I find you get into this vintage, so you know, it's almost 50 years old, and you think, well, it hasn't been played much, let's see how it works. And it actually did work. But it had transistor noise, several of the capacitors were leaking. So anyway, even though it had been sitting, I replaced all the electrolytic capacitors. If you've worked on these early Kenwoods, there's a tone board here, there's a separate phono board, a separate power amp board, and a separate tuner board. This one's very similar to the TK20, which was the international version. Great sounding unit. This has FM. Even without an antenna, I have some receivers hooked up. It's unbelievable what it picks up. And we're in a metal building here in an apartment. I have it hooked up to a pair of PSB monitors. It just has that nice Kenwood sound. A little bit on the sweet side, but nice solid bass. Now this is rated as 14 watts per channel. I'm not kidding, I've had 50 watt, 60 watt receivers that weren't as punchy as this. There's something about that quasi-complementary output stage. Now, the output transistors were good. I ended up replacing all the transistors. There's these 458s, C458s, which were in Sensuis, that were in Marances. In the phono stage, there's 4, 2 for each channel. On the tone board, there's a couple, and then there's a couple more on the power amp board. And it had whistling in one channel, kind of a hash noise in another, and it ended up, as I replaced them from the phono stage through, and I ended up taking all 8 of them out, the thing quieted right down. And I'll show you what I mean. I'm just going to put it over the phono. There's a turntable hooked up to it. Turn it all the way up. There's nothing there. Nothing. Full volume. No hum, no hiss, no pop, nothing. It's unbelievable. And yes, I did turn it down. So nice, easy listening. Yeah, these are a nice unit. Really good construction. They're hard to find. I don't think many of them were sold because they're a little bit on the expensive side. And it's very similar, the amplifier section, to the KA-2000, which is about this size. It's one of the wood grain. It's an integrated amp, 14 watts. It either has 2 SD90s or 2 SD91s in the output. Same transformer, very similar stage. No coupling transformers. It's all capacitor coupled the whole way through. These were a pretty decent design for their time. Anyway, thanks for watching and listening.